Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So we're still on February 8th, 1995. February 8th has 5 parts, so we're on part 2 today. Hopefully we don't get a lot of dog barking today. But that seems to be what we're talking about, so don't get your hopes up too high.
Suggested to Mr. Fairtlaw that we might put the name of the witness who is testifying when the printout is made for later sorting out by the jury.
That's a good idea. Thank you. All right. All right, Ms. Clark, Mr. Darden, your next witness.
Thank you, Doctor. People call Lewis Clark.
Madam Reporter, how's your paper supply? How does 10:30 sound? All right, Mr. Carp, would you come in, please? Step over here by the court reporter.
He asks how is your paper supply often enough that I know that he's been bit right in the rear by running out of paper over and over again. And now he knows. Hi, Jerry.
Fine, why don't you face the clerk?
Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat in the witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
My name is Louis Karp. That's Louiskarpf.
And he just took off a coat in Los Angeles.
Ms. Clark, don't trip over the bag there.
Thank you very much. Right here. Good morning, Mr. Carp.
Good morning.
Kiki.
Sir, directing your attention to the date of June the 12th, 1994. As of that date, sir, where were you living?
I was living at 873 South Bundy Drive.
And where would that be in relation to 875 South Bundy?
That is the next condominium north of that unit.
Okay, so 875 South Bundy would be just south of you?
Just south of me,
Right next door?
right next door.
I ask you to turn and look at the exhibit that's been marked People's 26 and take a pointer. And just to orient you, if this red square here was 875 South Bundy, what would that blue square be?
That would be the unit that I lived in.
873 South Bundy?
That's correct.
All right, 1492, could you hear that answer? Thank you.
Jonathan, could I have that?
Hi, Kiki.
I'm going to ask you, sir, to look at the monitor to your right. Look down. There you go. Do you recognize the location that's shown there in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you see that moving cross?
Yes.
First of all, I'm going to show with the cross, Jonathan, could you put it on the Jeep? Thank you. If that cross is now at a Jeep that's parked at 875 South Bundy, could you please tell the jury where your unit would have been in relation to that?
And just north of that.
Would that be where it's indicated with the cross?
And that is correct.
Thank you. Can you print?
Now an X.
Now an X. And I think we're going to put the initials of the, excuse me, counsel? I'm sorry? Yes. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Can we put an LK at the top of the, very, very, very top? In the center? Or, that's fine. Thank you, John. All right, now do you have an entrance that opens out onto that alley, sir?
My garage opens out into the alley.
Do you use that garage to go in and out of your apartment?
Yes, I do.
And as of As of June the 12th, 1994, sir, how long have you been living there?
It would be about 4.5 years.
Did you ever know who was living at 875 South Bundy in June of 1994?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
Cole Simpson Brown.
And did you know she had a dog?
I heard it on occasion, never saw it.
You occasionally heard it barking?
Yes,
On the date of June the 12th, 1994, sir, were you in Los Angeles?
no, I wasn't.
Where were you?
I was in San Jose.
Did you return sometime that night?
Yes, I did.
About what time?
I got home approximately 10:45 at night.
What? Well, how do you know that?
Well, I know what time my flight approximately took off and that it was late. And I'm aware of the time when
on February.
I was in a hurry to get home, so I know I was late. I should have been home at least a half hour earlier.
Okay. So what time did your flight land?
It landed approximately 10 p.m.
And so do you take that flight often from San Jose to Los Angeles?
I would say 2 to 4 times a year.
Okay. Do you do a lot of flying?
Not excessively.
Have you landed at LAX before?
Many times.
And have you driven from the LAX parking lot to your home on Bundy many times?
Yes, I have.
And are you very familiar with how long it takes you to get to the airport parking lot and from there to your home?
Yes, I am.
So your flight landed at 10 o'clock that night?
Yes.
And then you got to the airport parking lot about what time?
I would say no later than 10:15.
And from there you had to drive home?
Yes.
And that takes you how long?
20 minutes to half hour maximum.
And so that night, how long did it take you to get home from the airport parking lot at 10:15?
I would say within that period of 20 minutes to half hour.
I always do.
So you got home no later than 10:45.
No later.
What did you do when you got home, sir?
The first thing I did is I went out to retrieve my mail, which is out towards Bundy.
Let me back up for a minute. I wanted to ask you something. In that unit, sir, when you come in, did you go in through the garage?
Yes, I did.
And does that garage door kind of squeak?
It's noisy. It rattles and shakes the unit a little bit.
And when you open the door that leads into the actual unit itself, is there a noise that your alarm gives off to indicate?
Yes, I have it set so it beeps, so when the door opens, someone knows someone's coming.
So it gives beeps
Yes, it does.
so that someone inside can hear someone enter?
Definitely.
And you went in through that particular entrance that night?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Then what did you do?
So I went out to my mailbox, which is in the front of the condo complex. And at that point, I noticed a dog barking quite profusely.
When you say the front, would that be on the street of Bundy itself?
Yes, it faces the street of Bundy.
He was fine until he said that he noticed the dog barking, and then he couldn't speak, and he's like blushing. He's really under stress right now.
And where exactly were you when you saw this dog?
Well, I had reached my mailbox at that point, which is maybe 10 feet from the curb. And I saw a dog in the street coming at me, barking very profusely.
Now, after that night, did you see that dog on newscasts and television?
Yes, subsequently I did see it, yes.
And did you recognize the dog you saw on television as the one you'd seen that night barking in the street on Bundy?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I have here a board. Council yesterday. I'd ask that it be marked People's 40.
All right, People's 40.
Thank you. Do you see the dog depicted in the photographs that have been marked as People's 40?
Yes, I do.
And do you recognize the dog that is shown to you there?
I would say that's the same dog.
The same dog that you saw barking in the street on Bundy on the night of June the 12th at approximately 10:45?
That is correct.
That is 6th Avenue. That's what it said. It's not clear what time it is. We're working on it.
Approximately. That's what she said, approximately. Whole rule.
Yeah.
People's Exhibit 40 is a board that appears to contain 4 photographs, 3 of which are a dog, and the 4th appears to be a, what is it, a collar?
Caller. Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, sir. You got home at 10:45. Did you go directly into your apartment and out to the street to get your mail?
Yes, I did.
So 10:46 or 47, you saw the dog?
I would say that's pretty accurate.
And where in the street was the dog when you saw it?
At that point, it was in the middle of the street, just running or walking aimlessly,
And barking?
barking very loudly.
And what did it do when you approached your mailbox?
It started to approach me, which did scare me, so I actually retreated back inside my gate until it moved on.
When you retreated back inside your gate, what did it do?
After that, a few, maybe 20 seconds or so, it started back into the street, walking up towards Montana.
When you saw that dog, did you happen to see anybody else in the street?
Yes, I saw somebody walking across the street with a dog also, heading north.
Was it a couple of people or was it one person?
One person, I believe it was a man.
A man.
Hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
So in what direction did you see the dog, the Akita go? Excuse me, the dog go?
The dog was heading north towards Montana.
When you were outside in front of your apartment unit, you saw the dog. Did you look around to see what was causing the dog to bark?
No, I didn't.
Can you describe the lighting in that front area on your street?
The lighting is not, it's not great. We have lights in front of our place which illuminate the front part of our unit. There's a street light just maybe 30 feet to the south. But basically it's fairly dark.
And the apartment or the condominium to your, that's just south of you, 875 South Bundy, was it dark in front of that unit as well?
Yes, it was.
At some point after you got home, do you recall hearing the activity of police arriving to the location?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall approximately when that was?
I believe it was about 1 a.m.
At 1 a.m., what made you think that it was the police that were there?
Well, I looked out my window.
You saw them there.
Right.
Do you know if that's exactly when they arrived, or is that just when you noticed them?
No, since I live in the back of the unit, of her unit, that's when I started hearing a lot of noise.
When you say you live in the back of the unit, does that mean that your unit does not have access to Bundy?
No, it doesn't.
So your unit faces the alley, and that's your exit and entrance?
Well, I have 2 entrances. I can come through the front, but I enter, since I drive in from the alley.
Okay. The front part of that unit that faces Bundy, is that also part of your unit?
No, it's not.
That belongs to someone else?
Yes, it does.
So does your unit have any windows that face out onto Bundy?
No, it doesn't.
How many dogs did you see barking that night?
1.
The one you've described?
Yes.
And you indicated, I believe you indicated that you had heard, withdraw that. Had you heard dogs barking in that neighborhood before?
On occasion, yes.
Had you ever heard a dog barking the way you heard this one barking on that night?
I would say no.
Did you know who was living next door to you at 875 South Bundy, sir?
Yes,
I did?
Yep.
I'm sorry. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Cochran?
Morning, Mr. Carp.
good morning, Mr. Cochran.
Just a few questions, if I might. Sir, with regard to the trip that you took to San Jose, you returned Sunday evening, and you recall that you returned about 10 o'clock in the evening?
That's correct.
And on what airline were you traveling, do you recall?
It was Southwest.
And was the flight due in at 10 o'clock, or just happened to get in at 10 o'clock?
I think it was due in about 9:30.
So it was late, about a half
Yes.
hour. And had you checked any luggage?
No, I didn't.
And so you had carry-on?
Correct.
And with regard to arriving about 10 o'clock, after you retrieved your carry-on luggage, where were you, how did you get home? Did you have a car parked there somewhere?
I had a car.
And where was the car
It
parked?
was parked right next to the terminal. I think it's called Park 1.
All right, so the Terminal 1 is where Southwest is.
Right.
And then you would park in that new parking area there at Park 1.
That's correct. You can
So
walk
you-
right to it.
So you then walked across and got your car. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
All right. And then you then headed home to the 873 Bundy address.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Now, do you recall speaking with two officers, Officer R.O. Harrow, H-A-R-O, and J.A. Harper, in connection with this matter back on July 7th, 1994, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
I don't remember their names, but I did speak to two officers.
All right. And where did you talk to them, sir, if you recall?
They came to my place of business.
All right. And that was somewhere downtown L.A.?
Yes, it was.
All right. And you talked to them about the events and your involvement in those events of the night of June 12th, 1994. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And specifically, do you recall telling Officers Harrow and Harper that Mr. Karpf indicated that he arrived home from LAX Airport, paren San Jose, in paren, at approximately 2250 to 2300 hours, that is, 1050 to 11 o'clock? You remember telling him that?
I might have said in that approximate time, yes.
All right, and that would be fairly accurate, would it not be?
Within 10 minutes, either side, yes. Maybe 5 minutes.
5 or 10 minutes. Let me,
Yeah.
may I approach you? I'd like to show you the report. May I ask you to read this? And I'll ask you to read to
Sure.
yourself first, Mr. Carpenter. Why don't you just read from here to there first? All right. Have you now read that?
Yes, I have.
And does that tend to refresh your recollection that you did in fact tell these officers that you had...
Objection, there's been no indication that exhibit B was never requested.
May I finish the question?
You may.
Does the review of the report that I just provided to you in any way refresh your recollection that you told the officers that you'd arrived home from LAX Airport at approximately 10:50 to 11 o'clock p.m.?
I'm not sure exactly, within 5 minutes either side, yes.
All right, and when you were talking to the officers, you were trying to be as accurate as you could, weren't you?
Yes.
All right, and you had no reason not to be accurate in telling them that, would you?
No.
And when you would talk to them, you saw them write down what you were saying, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
You told them you'd been to San Jose, and they wrote that down, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, after you arrived home, you described how you come in the rear in that real alleyway there that parallels Bundy, is that correct?
That's correct.
You then came in the garage. Did you go into the house at all before you went to your mailbox, if you recall?
Well, I have to go through the house to get to the mailbox.
All right. So you come in the garage, then you unlock the door, I presume, and you go in the house?
Yes.
Okay. And then would you put your luggage down, that sort of thing?
I would just drop it on the floor.
All right, drop it. And then your first goal was then to get out and try to get your mail, is that correct?
That's what I did.
Okay, and then, so you'd go through the house toward Bundy to go and try to find your mail, is that right?
Correct.
And it was at that point, would you say that would be within 3 to 5 minutes of your arrival in the garage that you went out to the mailbox?
I think 3 minutes would be accurate.
3 minutes, okay. So if you got home at 10:50 or 11 o'clock, so within 3 minutes of that, or whatever time it was, you then went out to your mailbox, is that right?
That'd be correct.
And at that point, that's when you saw this dog that you believe is the dog depicted on People's 40 there, is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
And at the time you saw that dog, you had never seen that dog before, is that correct?
And that is correct.
At some point, even though you retreated back inside your gate, you were able to get your mail at some point, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And did you ever have occasion to look to your right in the general direction of 875 South Bundy? Did you look in that general direction at all?
I don't think I did, no.
All right, so you have no recollection of well, you don't think you did actually look to your right.
If I did, I wouldn't see anything anyway.
All right, so from your vantage point, you couldn't see anything. Is that right? You got
That's
the inside
correct.
light. All right. And the dog was out in the center of the street, is that correct?
In the center, right.
All right. Now, sir, with regard to this other individual that you saw, you indicated, I believe, that you saw another male who was across the street. That would be then on the east side of Bundy, is that correct?
That is correct.
And in which direction was this male who was walking the dog headed?
He was heading north,
So he was headed on the east side, headed north
which would go towards Montana.
toward Montana. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And was that someone that you knew?
No.
And was that someone you'd ever seen before?
It's hard to say. It was dark, on that side of the street.
All right, I understand, sir.
Okay.
Have you seen that person since that time, this male?
Not that I noticed.
Have you seen the dog in the neighborhood since that time?
I don't think so.
All right. Can you describe for us the individual who was walking the dog as he proceeded northbound on Bundy, approaching Montana on the east side of the street?
I really can't describe him. He was a male,
All right.
Caucasian.
Male Caucasian. Do you have no idea of how tall he was or
No.
how much he weighed? You have no recollection of how he was dressed?
No.
Can you in any way describe the dog at all that he was having?
No, I can't.
Was his dog on a leash?
It was on a leash.
With regard to the dog that you believe was the dog depicted in People's 40 there, the dog have a leash on it that night?
Same.
Do you recall?
No idea.
I believe he did.
All right, your recollection is he had a leash?
Yes.
All right. And as you saw the dog running in the street with this leash, the only other person that you ever saw was this man, male Caucasian, across the street walking the dog.
That is correct.
When you came back inside your house, did you have occasion to go back out in that alleyway at all?
No, I didn't.
When you drove up, and as I understand, can we have one of these photos? May I have just a second, Your Honor?
Kelly Fitz knows north, south, east, and west, no matter where she is, though. She's a master.
Now, you can watch your monitor if you can see that way. People's 38, I believe. Is that 38? 38, thank you. Mr. Karp, sir, with regard to your returning home, would I be correct in assuming that you proceeded from Dorothy into this alleyway heading north to go into your particular
That is correct.
residence? Is that correct? And as you then, of necessity and proceeding northbound, you passed by 875. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you see any vehicles out there when you drove past at
Nothing that I
10:50,
recall.
11? You don't recall anything
No.
at all? You see any other parties in that alley when you drove in there that you recall at this point?
No.
Did you first become aware of the police after about 1 o'clock that particular morning?
That is correct.
The morning of the 13th? But you did not talk to the police at that time at all?
No, I didn't.
You just knew they were out there?
Yes.
And you didn't talk to the police actually in connection with this case until about July 7th, is that correct?
I was interviewed on July 7th.
And that was the first time you were interviewed?
When I walked out front the next morning and gave a statement, they asked me a couple questions.
All right, did they write that down?
Well, you can answer.
You walked out front the next morning, that's June 13th?
That's correct.
And who'd you talk to, if you know?
I don't recall the officer's name.
All right, was this officer in uniform, or was this...
He was in uniform.
He was in a uniform? Have you seen that officer since that time?
No, I haven't.
Can you identify him at all?
No.
And if we just ask you a few questions?
Just a few basic questions.
Like what kind of basic questions?
And where I was last night. They wouldn't tell me what was happening in the crime scene, so... And there was nothing that I even knew about the crime scene until much later in the day.
All right, you just had a brief conversation.
Very brief.
And then your first formal interview then was on July 7th,
That's correct.
1994. When, how close did you get to the key to that particular night?
I would say he came within 15 feet.
And that's when you kind of retreated, is that correct?
Yes.
When you arrived, when you finally got into the house and upstairs, I presume if we follow your trail, you got the mail, then you didn't came back inside, is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you at some point go upstairs to your bedroom area?
I did around 12 o'clock.
All right, you didn't go up until 12 o'clock?
Right.
And so when you got there at 12 o'clock, in other words, you had not been up there until 12 o'clock from the time you arrived home. Is that right? Upstairs.
That's correct.
And would that be the first time that you saw your fiancée, Miss Stein, at about 12 o'clock that particular night?
Actually, I probably went up to put something in, but she was in bed, so I didn't wake her up.
Right. She was sleeping when you went up. Is that right? As near as you could tell?
As near as I could tell, yes.
All right. So when you went up there about 12 o'clock, is that when did you
That's
wake
when I decided to go to bed.
All right. And did you wake her up at that point?
To be honest, I don't remember if
right.
I woke her up. I'm sure I did.
All right.
I've been gone for all weekend.
So you think you probably woke her up? All right. That would have been about 12 o'clock.
Yes.
All right. And the police, you became aware of the police in that alleyway sometime about an hour after that, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
Had you fallen asleep by that time?
I think I did, yes.
And so it was the noise in the alley that awakened you also?
That's correct.
All right. With regard to the Akita, did you ever see anything on the paws of the Akita at all?
No, I didn't.
You didn't see anything at all on the paws of the Akita?
No.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gardner.
You're welcome.
If my boyfriend's gone for the week and he comes home and doesn't wake me up, I would be very mad.
Do you have much redirect, Ms. Clark? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a recess at this time. Please remember my admonition to you, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, don't form any opinions about the case, allow anybody to talk to you or perform any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you, and we'll take them up to the lounge upstairs. All right, Mr. Karff, you're excused for about 25 minutes. Don't discuss your testimony with anybody other than the attorneys, all right? You're ordered to come back at 11 o'clock. All right, thank you, sir. Don't forget your jacket. All right, we'll stand in recess. Anything we need to discuss before we resume with Mr. Karp? All right, let's have the jurors, please. All right, like the record reflect, we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Mr. Lewis Karp is still on the witness stand. Mr. Karp, you're reminded that you were still under oath, sir. And Ms. Clark, you may commence your redirect examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Karp, did you and I have a little conversation over this past break?
A little conversation.
Very little. I'm sorry.
We strike the last name.
Oh,
Just right.
Ms. Clark.
And do you recall that I asked you if you remembered your girlfriend coming downstairs to see you when you got home from the airport?
I didn't remember that she did, no.
Do you remember my asking you that?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And what your answer was?
I didn't recall that she did. It's possible, but I didn't recall that she did.
It's possible that she did, but you don't remember it.
That's correct.
In any case, after, the day after you found out about the murders, do you recall that she told you that half an hour before you got home she was awakened by dogs barking?
Sustained.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
When we approach, Your Honor, we really need to ask this question. It's the key to the case.
All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The objection was overruled?
Yes.
And so the day after this, did your girlfriend, Miss Stein, tell you that she was awakened by dogs barking a half hour before you got home?
We did discuss that she was awakened from the previous night by the dogs barking, yes.
And did she tell you that she was awakened about a half hour before you got home by the dogs barking?
I would say that's fairly accurate. I don't know if it's a half hour, 45 minutes, but it's in that area, yes.
I'm sorry?
It would be within that area, half hour before I got home at least, maybe even more.
That's what she told you?
Right.
Okay. And that was the day after the murders?
That is correct.
And you didn't speak to the police to give an actual statement until July 7th?
That is correct.
Now, you indicated that within 5 minutes or so of 10:45 is when you got home from the airport?
I would say it's closer to 10:45 than 10:50 in that area.
So are you certain that you got home before 11?
Yes, I am.
Absolutely certain.
Absolutely.
Are you certain that you got home before 10:50?
Not absolutely, no.
What's the very latest you think you could have gotten home?
By 10:50.
No later than that.
9.
The gentleman that you indicated that you saw walking the dog, you don't remember his height or his weight? Was that your testimony?
Yes, I did. I really wasn't trying to observe him.
So, given that fact, sir, if you did see him again in the neighborhood, would you have recognized him?
No, I wouldn't.
Do you recall how long you were outside in front of Bundy when you went to get the mail?
The whole process may have taken 1 to 2 minutes.
This is adding absolutely nothing to nothing to nothing. Maybe it'll be important later, but it's nothing.
Mr. Cochran?
Yes, sir. Just a few more questions.
Mr. Carper, sir, when you spoke with interviewing officers Harrow and Harper, and you told them that you'd arrived home between 10:50 and 11 o'clock, you're being as accurate as you could at that time. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And here we are now in February of 1994, and your memory for events that had taken place on June 12th, 1994, was better on July 7th, 1994 than it is now. Isn't that correct?
I would say yes.
Okay, you agree with that? All right. Now, with regard to this conversation, sir, that you had with your fiancée, what she told you isn't it that she told you that you returned to the residence, she believed, approximately 30 to 45 minutes after she was awakened by the barking dogs. Isn't that correct?
That would be about correct, yes.
And she also told you, did she not, that she told you that she'd heard more than one dog barking, didn't she? A few dogs? Do you recall that?
I don't recall that, but it's possible.
All right. And she told you that she had fallen asleep about 10 o'clock that particular evening, right?
That's correct.
And that sometime between 10:15 p.m. and 10:45 p.m., she was awakened by this intense barking by a few dogs as this window was open in the back part of your house. That's right?
That's correct.
All right. And so when you talked to these officers on July 7th,
Objection. Objection, that misstates the testimony of the police report.
I read from the police report, Your Honor. I was reading directly from it. May I proceed? Thank you. With regard to when you talked to the police on July 7th, you were trying to be as accurate as you could
Yes.
in telling them the time. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark?
Attention to page 908 of the murder book. Mr. Clark, I'm showing you a statement here. Do you see your name at the top?
Yes, I do.
All right. I'm going to direct your attention to a line right here where it says, witness further stated. Thank you, Your Honor. Now, this is your witness statement, right, Mr. Clark?
Right.
Your name's at the top?
Mm-hmm.
And it says here, witness further stated that his girlfriend, Eva Stein, heard dogs barking earlier in the evening between 10 o'clock and 10:30. Was that your statement to the police, sir?
That's what I said, yes.
And was that your best recollection back on July 7th as to what she had told you?
That would be my best recollection. Yes.
And do you recall her also telling you, sir, that she was awakened by dogs barking half an hour before you got home?
That's correct.
Now, in your statement also, you indicated that you arrived home from Los Angeles Airport at approximately 10:50 to 11 o'clock.
That's correct.
How carefully were you questioned as to the timing of your arrival from the airport?
Sustained.
At this time, sir, you've made an effort to recall very precisely what time you got home. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
At the time that you spoke to the police, were you aware that that particular aspect of your statement would be very important?
Objection to call that question, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Sir, can you tell us, did you have any idea, did you make an effort to be very precise in the times that you gave the police officers with respect to when you arrived home from the airport?
Objection to call that question. I'm asking the answer from 10:50 to 11 o'clock is fairly correct.
Overruled.
Do you remember the question?
Let's state it again so I can answer it correctly.
Question was, did he try to be very precise in his answers to the officers regarding times?
Thank you. Did you make an effort to be very precise in the times that you gave the police officers with respect to when you arrived from the airport?
Yes, I knew it was an important question. I did try to be accurate.
Okay. And you told them between 10:50 and 11 o'clock?
That's what I said.
And was that accurate?
I would say it was fairly, yes, it was accurate.
Well, today you're saying that it was no later than 10:50?
No, she's arguing with Ms. Sharon. I like to approach it by my...
Overruled.
I would say it's closer to 10:50 than 11, but I would say within that 10 minutes, that would be, without documenting it, that would be accurate.
So is it your testimony at this time that you could have arrived home at 11 o'clock?
I don't think so, but that would be a possibility.
What is your best recollection today, sir, as to when you got home?
Ask the question.
Overruled.
It was closer to 10:50.
And so if you were to give the most accurate time estimate of when you got home, that time would be?
Ask the question.
Sustained.
Sir, you indicated that you got to, your plane landed at 10 o'clock and you felt that you,
Then ask the question, Your Honor.
it's foundational.
Counsel, let's approach with the court report, please. All right, thank you, counsel. Ms. Clark?
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Not me. I thought it would be boring. Boy, was I wrong.
What was the closest you ever got to that dog that was in the street, the Akita?
Ask the question.
Sustained.
Were you able to see the dog's paws and legs clearly?
I could see his legs clearly, his paws I wasn't looking at.
And was it dark in the street where that dog was?
It was fairly dark, yes.
Did you examine his legs or his paws carefully when you looked at him?
Objected to, Your Honor. Take proper legal record. You got 15 feet out from the Objected.
That objection's overruled.
Ask the question.
No, I didn't look at its paws or... You want to rephrase that one more time?
Yeah. Were you examining its legs or its paws very carefully when you saw it out in the street there?
No, I wasn't.
You were frightened by it, in fact?
Frightened by its barking.
About how long did you look at that dog?
Ask the answer.
Sustained.
I didn't ask him about this, Your Honor. This is in response to counsel's questioning about whether he saw blood on the legs, and I don't think I did.
Well, it's a simple question and answer. It'll take me more time to go back through my notes to see, so go ahead and answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
How long did you look at the dog?
I would say I saw the dog no more than a minute, basically, maybe a minute and a half.
And during which time the dog was moving around and barking?
That's correct.
I have nothing further.
Mercifully, I have no further questions, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Karff, I'm going to excuse you from further attendance this morning. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else except for the attorneys till the matter is concluded. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Clark, your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call for Stephen Schwab. Thank you, Lord.
one of your colleagues bringing Mr. Schwab in? Would you stand over here by the court reporter, please, and face the clerk?
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
My name is Stephen Schwab. That's Stevenschwab.
Ms. Clark.
Good morning, Mr. Schwab.
Good morning.
I'm going to direct your attention to the events that occurred on the night of June 12th, Sunday, 1994. As of that date, sir, can you tell us where you were living?
Yes, at that time I was living at 11965 Montana Avenue. That's between Bundy and San Vicente.
Okay. There is a map that marks People's 26 to your left. Could you indicate on this map where approximately you were living?
Here's the two.
Yes, there should be a bigger one. Oh, this one's better.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is where I live.
For the record, the witnesses pointed to, I guess it's a greenhouse that's indicated on Montana.
Here.
I would get the doggy. I would make sure the doggy was okay.
And were you a pet owner at that time, sir?
Yes, I was.
What did you own?
I have a dog, Sherry, and I also own a cat.
You want to pull that microphone in a little bit, sir?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, did you have a habit with respect to walking your dog?
Yes, I walk the dog the same time every night during the week, and on the weekend I also had a habit that was the same week to week.
And what was that habit?
Well, during the week, I would walk my dog between 11 and 11:30, so that I would come home. When I got home, I was able to watch the Dick Van Dyke Show on TV. On the weekends, I walk the dog between 10:30 and 11 because the Dick Van Dyke Show ends at 10:30 on the weekends. So I had the same habit and took roughly a half hour each night when I walked my dog.
Now, the show that you watched on the weekend, is that also Dick Van Dyke?
Yeah, it's a little, the schedule's a little different. At that time, it was that the Dick Van Dyke Show ran from 10 to 10:30. I would walk my dog from 10:30 to 11, and at 11 o'clock I would come home and watch the Mary Tyler Moore Show. That was my Sunday evening.
And was that a habit, a matter of routine for you?
Yeah, that was what I did, to relax before, starting a new work week.
And on June the 12th, a Sunday, did you follow that same routine, sir?
Yes, I did.
Now, on that particular night, do you recall what episode you were watching of the Dick Van Dyke Show?
I'm not completely clear on what episode it was on that particular night.
But you know you were watching the Dick Van Dyke
I know
Show?
that I watched the Dick Van Dyke Show and that it ended at just prior to 10:30.
So when it ended, sir, what did you do?
When it ended, I got my dog's leash from the closet and put it on my dog and took my dog out for a walk.
And you left your apartment how long after the show ended, sir?
Shortly after the show ended, within a few minutes. Didn't take very long.
Okay, within what?
2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. So at 10:32, 10:33 you left?
Approximately, yeah.
Now, can you tell us where you went when you left your apartment?
Well, again, this is a habit that I had I walked my dog down Bundy, and I walked my dog down Montana towards Bundy, and then I went past Bundy, and I made a left on a street called Gretna Green over here, and then I made a left and I walked down 1 block and made a right on Gorham, and continued along Gorham till I got to this street here, which is Amherst, and then I made a left on Amherst, and then made a left on Dorothy, and walked along Dorothy till I got back to Bundy, which is the corner over here, and my normal routine is to walk down Bundy then and return to my house on Montana.
Okay, I'll tell you what, if you don't mind,
Yes.
we're going to put this up on the monitor, and we're going to trace the route as you tell it to us, okay?
Of course.
Well, you're going to have a monitor that's to your right,
Okay.
all right?
What am I supposed to...
You don't have to do anything. We're going to
Okay.
do it for you as you speak, and you make sure, you tell us if we're doing the right.
Okay.
Okay.
Still, I can't...
Yeah.
Let's line this over a little.
A little bit over that way. Thank you, Your Honor. That, let's make sure, does that cover the area that you...
Yeah, that, that covers the area entirely. This map doesn't have the symbol for my house, but it's just above the B in Bundy. It's about the third house from the corner of Bundy and Montana.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't we, you see where the cross is?
Yeah, a little
Okay.
further, about there.
There, all
Yeah,
right, can we,
roughly.
we'll put an X there. We have a cross there, is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Okay,
People's 41.
thank you, Your Honor. And we're going to put the initials SS in the, there we go. Good. Thanks, John. All right, can you tell us the route again, and we're going to trace it for you on this?
Okay. I leave my house on Montana Avenue and I walk down Montana towards Bundy. I cross the street at Bundy and continue along Montana until I get to Gretna Green. At Gretna Green I make a left and continue on until I get to Gorham. At Gorham I make another left and continue on to the next cross street, which is Amherst. At Amherst, I turned left and continued on to Dorothy. At Dorothy, I turned left again and continued on Dorothy, passing Gretna Green again, and continued till I got to Dorothy and Bundy. At the corner of Dorothy and Bundy, I turn left and continue on Bundy, down past Gorham, all the way to Montana, and then I walk down Montana till I return to my home.
All right. I'm going to leave that there because we're going to mark it again, okay? Now, you left your home with your dog at about, you said 10:32 or 10:33?
So shortly after 10:30. It's not exact that the show ends exactly at 10:30, because the next show starts at 10:30, but I left shortly after the end of the Dick Van Dyke Show, so a couple of minutes, yeah.
Can you?
I didn't realize it was Facebook.
Highlight that in red. Make it a little more visible.
I thought it was YouTube. Sorry.
Right, now, how can you be so certain of this route?
Well, it's a route that I use frequently. It's one that I've designed essentially to take about a half hour to get me home, so that I don't, so that I can watch whatever shows I want. If I choose to vary the route, I can. But this is a basic route. It's kind of a circle. I mean, you can see that it's takes me home again very, very easy. Also, it's a very beautiful neighborhood. I pass a lot of nice houses along the way, and it's pleasant. It's a pleasant walk.
Now, can you tell us, was there any point at which you checked your watch to see what time it was?
On this particular evening, I checked my watch once at the corner of Gretna Green and Montana.
Okay. And what time was it when you got to Gretna Green in Montana?
Okay, my dog had taken care of its business, and I'd cleaned up after it, and I checked my watch at that point to decide whether I should continue on or to return home, because I didn't have to, for the dog's sake, I didn't have to continue on if I didn't want to. And that was between 10:35 and 10:40 when I checked my watch, somewhere in the middle there, because I didn't have a digital watch. I have an analog watch, and that's where the hand was.
So the hand on the watch is between 10:35 and 10:40?
Yes.
And you made a point of looking at your watch at that point?
Yes.
Okay. That was at the corner of Gretna Green in Montana?
Yes.
Can we write in? Make it clear.
I
At
use
that
TV
intersection,
timelines.
At that corner of Gretna Green?
My schedule was firmly around TV shows because you couldn't just turn on demand and play it if you missed it.
Green in Montana.
It's a different color.
Okay, yellow? Black? Okay. Okay. 10:35 to 10:40.
And everybody would talk about it.
Joe Madden, he's not, but can you make that 5 a little bit better, John? Thanks.
Well, I think the jury can read the map as well and figure out where the corner of Gretna Green and Montana is here.
Yeah, no, I just wanted him to write the numbers. Okay. Yeah, and that'll be right there. All right. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And then you continued walking,
Yes.
and at some point during your walk, sir, did something unusual occur?
Yes. As I continued on, after I had started down Dorothy, past Gretna Green, it was roughly halfway down the block, about where that alley is. I saw that there was a dog at the corner of Dorothy and Bundy. Now, at that time, I didn't think it was anything unusual. I thought that the owner was probably around the corner or on Bundy somewhere, and it was just another dog walker.
Okay. Now, approximately, if you know, how long did it take you to get from the corner of Gretna Green in Montana to the corner of Dorothy and Bundy?
Well, it takes the halfway point of my route is roughly on Amherst, so that takes me about 15 minutes. So it was after that. Basically, I mean, in terms of what time I get home, this was towards the end of my route. So this I would say was between about 10:55 or so that I saw the dog. It's another between 5 and 10 minutes for me to get home from that point, from the corner of Dorothy and Bundy.
So approximately 10:55, you got to the corner of Dorothy and Bundy?
That's correct.
And can you...
The Flying Nun and Gidget.
Approximately. Can you put... Easier said than done, huh?
I don't think we need to get too detailed on these things because the jurors have their notebooks.
Right. Thank you, Alan. All right, so you got to the corner of Dorothy and Bundy and you saw a dog.
Yes.
Was there anyone with that dog?
No, as I got to the corner, I saw that the dog was alone. It was just, at that point, it was just standing on the corner.
What did you do?
Well, I approached the dog, and I saw that it was alone, and I observed the dog for a minute or two, and it was doing an unusual thing. It would turn away from me and look down. There's a house on the corner of Dorothy and Bundy, and it would look down the path leading to the doorway of that house and bark at the house for for a brief interval, and then it would stop, and then it would turn back to me. But it would bark at this house, which is something that I had never seen before. I didn't know quite what to make of that.
Could you tell what house it was barking at?
It was barking at the corner house. It was, again, there's a path at that particular corner house that leads almost directly to the corner, and it was looking down the path and barking essentially at the front door.
And were you able to see anything, were you able to see that house?
Yeah, I could see
Okay.
that house clearly from where I was standing.
And did there seem to be anything unusual in that house?
No, it was quiet. It was dark. I didn't know if people were asleep or not home, but there was nothing going on in the house essentially.
Okay, now this was the house that was on the corner of
That's
Dorothy
on the
and
corner
Bundy.
of Dorothy and Bundy. Yes.
And when you saw the dog barking there, what did you do?
Well, again, I didn't know what to make of it, but clearly at this point, because there was no one with the dog, I figured that this was a lost dog. So I wanted to check the collar to see if there was a name tag with an address so that I could bring the dog home. But I know that Akitas can be very protective dogs. So before I went to touch the collar, I let the dog smell me, and then I patted it on the head and said, things like good boy and good dog, to show that I was friendly. And when I saw that the dog wasn't going to bite me or attack me anyway, I put my hands on the collar and turned it around to see if there was a tag.
Okay, now, you knew this was an Akita?
Yes, I knew the breed. I'm a dog owner, so I know, some breeds of dogs, and Akita was one of the breeds that I'm familiar with.
I have here a board inside Nicole's Akita. Can you tell us if you recognize the dog depicted in these photographs, sir?
Yes. Yes, this looks like the dog, and it looks like the same collar that I saw that night.
And you saw the collar that's depicted in that last photograph?
Yes, I saw the collar and noticed that it was embroidered, that it was red and blue with embroidered symbols on it. It seemed expensive to me. It wasn't something that I could afford to get for my own dog. But I noticed that, I looked at it extensively to see if there was a tag or something written on the collar, but there wasn't.
What exhibit is this?
I'm sorry?
What exhibit is this?
I'm sorry, no, People's 40? All right, now, as you looked at the dog and you examined it for a tag, did you happen to notice its paws or its legs?
Yes, as I got closer to the dog, the first thing I saw was some blood on one of the back paws. First thing I noticed, it was above the paw, it was slightly on the leg. There was a streak of blood or a drip of blood on one of the back paws. And that was unusual to me, so I observed more closely and then saw that there was also blood on the bottom of the paws. Also, the underside of the dog was dirty. There was brown stuff on the bottom of the dog.
Okay.
I didn't notice anything wrong with the dog's paws, but it's a dark corner, so I wasn't completely sure, whether there might be a piece of glass wedged into one of the paws or something, but I didn't see anything like that at that time.
Okay, so was it dark? It was dark in that area, sir?
That's a very dark corner. It's a dark area. That side of the street is dark.
That side of the street, meaning the west side of Bundy?
Yes, the west side of Bundy is darker than the east side of Bundy, just because of the nature of the street lights that are there.
So what happened after you looked at the dog? You noticed its paws and its legs and its collar.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Well, I was confused. I didn't know exactly what to make of the situation, and I didn't know what the dog would do. At that point, I crossed the street. I crossed from the east side of Bundy. From the west side of Bundy to the east side of Bundy to see basically what the dog would do.
All right, you said you went from the west side to the east side of Bundy?
Yes, That's another part of my route. That's what I do. I cross the street at that point. That's what I do. It's a little lighter on that side of the street.
So you like it better because it's lighter on the east side of the street?
Yes.
Now, I'm pointing to you this red house and the blue house
Yes.
on the west side of Bundy.
Yes.
Okay. And you saw the dog on the corner of Dorothy and Bundy, was it
Yes.
on the west side?
That was on the west side. Yes.
And after you looked at the dog, you crossed over to the east side?
Yes.
And what did you do then?
Well, basically wanted to see what the dog would do. If the dog would go in a particular direction, then maybe I could follow it and find out where it came from. But the dog stayed with myself and my dog. It crossed the street with us. It stayed with us.
And did it follow you?
Yeah, at that point, I turned left to head back. At that point, I continued. I turned left to go down back towards Montana, and the dog stayed with us as we walked, but it continued its routine of, as we passed a house, it would look down the path and bark and howl at the houses that we passed.
Did it do that at every house that you passed?
It did that at every house along here on this side of Bundy. It did this at several houses along here. Pretty consistently, when there was a path that led, that led up the street. Sometimes there were steps and things like that, and there's even a wall. But when there was a situation with a path leading to a door, it would bark down the path.
For the record, when the witness said along here, he was pointing to the east side of Bundy in the area of the two icons that are depicted on that side of the street.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. So every time it would pass a house on the east side of Bundy where you were all walking that had a path leading up to it, it would stop and bark?
It would stop and bark. It barked down the path.
And how many times did it do that?
I would say approximately 3 times. It was several. It was more than one, but it wasn't like 10 or 12. It was I'd say approximately 3 times it did that.
Did that seem unusual to you?
That seemed very unusual to me. I had not seen a dog behave in this manner ever, and I didn't know whether it was because it was lost or because it had come from one of these houses. But that didn't appear to be the case either, because it didn't turn down the path to any of these houses. It would just bark at them.
Now, what was the traffic in that area at that time? Was it very heavy? Was it very light?
And, Bundy is very quiet that time of night, especially a Sunday night. There's not a lot of traffic on the street. I don't recall seeing a particular number of cars. I wouldn't necessarily say there were no cars, but there was not very much traffic at all. There generally isn't when I walk that time of night.
And did you continue to walk and the dog continued to follow you?
Yes, I continued down Bundy towards Gorham.
How did the dog stay close to you?
Yes, the dog stayed very close to me. It would do this thing of barking at the houses, and the first couple of times I kind of watched just to see what was going on, but then later I continued walking, and the dog would catch up to us in order to stay with us. It would bark, but it very clearly wanted to stay with myself and my dog.
Now, did you just say that you turned onto Gorham, or you just crossed Gorham?
No, I was walking towards Gorham at that point. I had turned left at Bundy and Dorothy and was walking along the east side of the street towards Bundy and Gorham.
Okay. What happened next?
Well, at that point, I saw a police officer drive by, and the unusual nature of all this, I flagged down the police officer to tell him that I had found this lost dog, and that it was unusual to see a loose dog in Brentwood at this time of night. It's unusual to see a loose dog in Brentwood at any time. This was the only time I've seen it.
All right, were you concerned with what to do with the dog?
I was concerned about the dog. Being a pet owner myself, I'm very sensitive to a dog being separated from its owner. So what I had done in the past when my wife or myself had found a lost dog was to bring the dog home and try to find the owner by putting up posters. And you see them all the time on the street, lost dog, maybe take a picture of the dog and put that with it. Because I had no idea how long this dog had been lost for. The dirtiness of it led me to believe that it might have been some time.
Did you encounter any police on your walk?
Yes, as I was walking between Dorothy and Gorham on Bundy, I saw a police officer drive by and I flagged him down.
Did you have some conversation with him?
Yes, at that point, I told him that I had found this lost dog and indicated the corner at which I had found the dog and told him that I didn't know exactly what to do in this situation. That I wanted to alert him, and maybe someone had reported a lost dog in the neighborhood, or maybe he could call someone who would know if there was a lost dog reported in the neighborhood.
And did you ask him for some help?
Yeah, I told him, and I didn't have an extra leash or anything on me, so I didn't, know what the dog was going to do. So I told him about the situation, that the dog was loose in the neighborhood, and he told me not to worry about it, he would take care of it, and that I should continue home. And I said, okay.
What happened then?
Well, I continued walking towards my house, or walking then down towards Gorham, but the dog stayed with me still. The dog continued to stay right next to myself and my dog.
So he wouldn't stay with the police officer?
He didn't stay with the police officer. The dog was still intent on sticking with myself and my dog.
Did the dog continue to bark as you went home?
Yes, the dog barked considerably at the corner of Gorham and Bundy. This was like the loudest barking really that it did in the course of the time that I was with it, and it went on for a longer period of time than it had barking at the individual houses. It really, barked and howled quite a bit. I can show you here. Right about here. Again, this is my habit. I cross the street here. I have to cross Gorham, and I end up crossing from the east side and ending up back on the west side of Bundy. And so I crossed the street here, and the dog stood at this point here and barked considerably as my dog and I continued to walk down Bundy towards Montana.
Can you look at your monitor, sir? You see where that pink arrow is? Can we use a
That's
different color?
basically correct, except it's the other side of the street.
That yellow arrow?
Yeah, it was on again, at this point, it was the west side of Bundy.
On the west side of Bundy.
Yes.
Can you move it a little bit to the left, John? Thank you. A little bit more?
No, it's.
How's that?
That's pretty close. I don't know if you can get the arrow to point in the other direction from the other side, but that would be more accurate.
Okay.
So
Pointing that way.
Back it up a little bit more west,
More
little
west?
left, little to the left, further to the left. Yeah, like at that point there, the dog barked considerably as my dog and I headed on Bundy, now back on the west side of Bundy, back towards Montana.
Okay. And then did you continue home?
I continued home, and at that point I wasn't certain whether the dog would continue to follow us because it was barking and the police officer was there. But it did. It stopped barking after a minute or so and caught up to myself and my dog and continued with us.
And when you walked into your apartment building, was it still following you?
Yes. Yes.
Now, at your building, is there a courtyard that you walk into from the street?
Yes, our building has a courtyard with a pool.
And did the dog follow you into that courtyard?
Yes.
Is your apartment, was it upstairs or was it downstairs?
So I live on the second floor of my apartment complex.
Did you walk up to your apartment on the
Yes.
second floor?
Yes, I walked up the stairs to my apartment.
And did the dog follow you up to your apartment on the second floor?
Yes, it did. It followed me all the way up to the landing outside of my apartment.
Do you recall what time you got home?
Well, it was approximately 5 minutes after 11 o'clock I came in the door, and I opened the door. My wife was sitting at the computer, and behind her I saw the TV set, and the Mary Tyler Moore Show was on, and it was the beginning of that episode, and I was relieved that it hadn't taken me much longer to get home than usual, because my wife sometimes worries about me if I'm out more than a half hour. She knows I have this routine, so if I had been out considerably longer, she might have been worried, but she wasn't.
Okay. So the Mary Tyler Moore Show had just started,
Yeah, it was the beginning of the episode.
and do you know what time it began? That show began on Sunday night on June the 12th?
Yes, that show begins at 11 o'clock.
Do you remember the episode that was on?
Yes, I remember, it was an episode that I had seen previously involving Mary dating someone from a rival station.
Okay. And that had just begun.
Yeah, it was the beginning of that particular episode.
So it was approximately, you said 11:05?
Yeah, approximately, that's what time it was.
Now, did you let the dog into your apartment?
No, I didn't. As I said previously, I have a cat, and I didn't want to upset the cat by bringing the large dog in right at that point. So I closed the door behind me. The dog was on the landing outside, and I hadn't told my wife yet, so I told my wife, Linda, that this big Akita had followed me home.
And what did you do with the dog?
Dog was on the landing outside my apartment, and I told Linda that the dog had followed me home, and she said something like "You're kidding," and I said no, and I opened the door and showed her that the dog was standing there at the landing to our apartment.
It just stayed there?
It just stayed there,
Okay.
and she went out to see that in fact it was real. It was just this big Akita standing at the landing to our apartment.
Why was that so strange that this dog would stay there on the landing? Because of the... I'm sorry?
You handling this witness, Mr. Douglas? All right.
Why did you think that was strange?
Well, it was unusual.
Roll the objection. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, let me think about it again and again. All right.
I thought of a better question. Why did you think that was strange?
I thought it was unusual for a dog to, attach itself quickly to a person that it didn't know. I'd never seen the dog before, so it was strange that the dog would stay with us.
Are you familiar with how much an Akita costs?
I know that they're expensive dogs.
Did it seem unusual that an expensive dog like that would be out running around alone?
Yeah, absolutely. The dog seemed well bred and well cared for, and again that the collar was very expensive. So I knew that this was not some stray street dog, but that this was an expensive dog.
Okay. So what did you do with the dog?
Well, I had spoken to the police officer as we were coming home as I was walking home along Bundy as I was walking on Montana between Bundy and my house, the police officer had stopped again, seeing that the dog was not staying in the area but was following me, and I spoke to him, and he said, "It's obvious the dog wants to follow you. Why don't you continue home?" And he said he would call animal control, and they would come by to take care of the dog. And I said that was fine. I gave him my name, address, and phone number, and went home. And so, after showing my wife that I had the dog, we got a spare leash and went out to sit on the steps leading to my apartment complex on Montana and wait for the people from animal control to show up.
Did they show up?
No, they did not show up.
So what did you do?
So now that we had the spare leash on the dog, we decided to walk the dog back towards where I found it. Maybe the people had noticed that it was missing, had come out by that time. So our intention was to take the dog back to the corner.
Maybe next Thursday we'll figure
Bundy
out.
and Dorothy.
And what happened?
Well, as I walked the dog towards Bundy, along Montana, the dog pulled back. The dog shied away from going towards Bundy. It kept pulling back towards my apartment complex.
It was pulling back?
It was pulling back. It was not allowing me to walk it towards Bundy. It was pulling away.
Can you describe what the weather was like that night?
It was a relatively cool night. It had been hot during the day, but in our neighborhood, so close to the ocean, it gets much cooler at night, and this was no exception. It cooled down considerably from the day.
How was the dog behaving?
Well, at this point, with the dog pulling away, again, this was also unusual. I noticed at that point that the dog was dehydrated, that it was panting, that its tongue was dry, and it seemed to need water because it was continual. At this point, it wasn't barking any longer. It was continually panting.
So it seemed dehydrated?
Yes,
like
it did.
Like it needed water?
Yes.
So what did you do?
So we walked the dog back to the courtyard of my building, and I went upstairs to get some water for the dog.
Did your dog drink?
Yeah, I went upstairs. I took my dog's dish, filled it with water, and as I was going back, I noticed that my light on my answering machine was blinking, but I didn't check the message or anything. I went downstairs, gave the dog the bowl of water, and it drank considerably. It drank quite a lot.
Now, when you were down in the courtyard, was there more light?
Yes, the courtyard in my building is fairly well lit. There's lights all around, and there's lights coming up from the pool, so it's fairly well lit.
As opposed to the dark area where you found the dog on the street?
Yes, there was much more light in the courtyard area.
Okay. At that time, did you take the opportunity to look more closely at the dog?
Yes, at this point I wanted to check the paws again to see if it was cut or bleeding, if there was a piece of glass wedged in one of the paws, and that was where the blood had come from. And so I checked, and the dog was getting a little bit calmer. It was not so dehydrated. So with that opportunity, I checked the dog's paws.
Did you check all four paws?
I checked all four paws.
Did you see blood on all four paws?
Yes, there was blood on all four of the paws.
And on the legs, did you see blood?
Some of the legs had blood splattered up the legs.
And did you find any injury on the dog that could be the source of that blood?
No, there was no injury. It let me touch the paws, it let me examine them, and it didn't shy away as if it was in pain. There was no glass in any of the paws, and it wasn't limping or walking in a strange way at any point.
You indicated before that the belly and even the chest of the dog, at first when you saw it in the dark area of Bundy and Dorothy, seemed to be muddy. Could you tell at this point, in the better light of the courtyard, whether it was muddy and dirty or bloody on the chest and the stomach?
It was dirty, and it was dried brown stuff, and I really don't know what color blood turns after it dries, but it was this dried brown stuff that I figured was either blood or either mud or more blood.
So as to that part of the dog, you couldn't tell?
I couldn't tell because it was brown at this point, and it was dried at this point.
Did you remember seeing any mud on the legs of the dog?
No.
No mud?
No.
Only blood?
Only the blood that I saw.
All right. At some point, did you have contact with animal control?
Well, I had seen the light blinking on my answering machine when I went to get the water. So I stayed down with the dog while it drank, and my wife went upstairs to check the message, and she came down and said it was people.
Okay, what she said, yeah, hearsay.
Right. Your wife came down and told you something,
Mm-hmm.
and based on what she told you, what did you do?
I went back upstairs and listened to the message, and it was from animal control.
Submit it.
All right. The part of the answer that the call was from animal control, that is stricken. Jury's ordered to disregard that. Ms. Clark?
You got a phone call.
Yes,
You spoke to someone.
yes.
Based on what that person told you, what did you do?
Well, based on that information, I knew that I had to either bring the dog to animal control myself by midnight or keep the dog overnight.
Did you want to take the dog to animal control?
I did not feel good at that point about taking the dog to animal control because I knew that the dog would be left there alone overnight, that there would be no one there to watch the dog. I didn't know if they would feed the dog before the person left animal control. I simply knew that the dog would be left
I
alone
love
overnight
this
at animal
guy.
control.
I really like this guy a lot.
So what did you do at that point?
I went back downstairs with the dog, back downstairs to the dog, and considered various options. One would be to bring the dog inside, maybe lock my cat in another room and keep the dog inside. Another option would have been to tie the dog up in the courtyard and let it stay there overnight. That concerned me because of the barking that it had done. If it started barking or howling in the middle of the night, it might disturb some of my neighbors. A third option would be once again try to walk it back to the corner of Dorothy and Bundy. And I was considering those options. I knew at that point that I was not going to take the dog to animal control myself, that I was going to keep the dog overnight.
So where were you seated at that time?
I was standing actually in the courtyard of my building in front of the staircase that leads up to my apartment. I had placed the bowl at the foot of the stairs, and the dog at that point was lying down.
Did someone that you knew from your apartment building appear in the courtyard?
Yes, at that point, Shukru Bostepi, my downstairs neighbor, entered from the back entrance to my apartment complex.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to spell that for the reporter. S-U, you have it? Sukru Bostepi showed up?
Yes, that's
And you knew
correct.
him from as a neighbor of yours in that building?
Yes, Shukru is my downstairs neighbor, and we're very close. We had a garage sale earlier that day. He takes care of my pets when I'm on vacation.
Okay.
We're very close.
What time was it when you saw him arrive?
That would be approximately 11:40.
Okay. Was he alone when you saw him first?
When I first saw him, he was by himself coming from the back entrance to our apartment complex.
And he has a wife?
Yes.
And her name is?
Her name is Bettina Rasmussen.
And do you have that one, Chris? Okay. Where did she come out also?
Yes, she came out from their apartment. It says they're our downstairs neighbor. We have almost identical apartments. Ours is on the second floor, theirs is on the first floor. So at that point, I was there with my wife and the dog, virtually in front of their apartment door. So he came home and she came out, and he asked where I got the dog, where this dog had come from.
All right. And then did you tell him everything that you've told us about how you found the dog?
Yes, I explained the situation up to this point and the fact that we didn't want to take the dog to animal control.
Okay. And did
Art,
you?
do you have much more at this point?
I do. I mean, not a lot
She's
more,
just
but
getting started.
Enough.
yeah.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess then for the noon hour at this time. Please remember carefully my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Form any opinions about the case. Allow anybody to talk to you about the case or conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. We'll stand in recess until 1:45. Mr. Schwab, you're ordered to return here at 1:45, all right? Don't discuss your testimony with anybody except for the attorneys in the case. All right? Thank you, sir.
All right, guys, we did it. We still got more dog barking to go tomorrow, apparently. Because Douglas is going to come up and talk to this guy out if Marcia ever gets done. I don't know. I don't remember watching the OJ trial. So Marcia still could be on the stand, have him on the stand, still questioning him about this dog. I don't know. Could still be going on. But thank you so much for coming out. Tomorrow's the big day. Tomorrow's the big day. So don't forget to come out 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time ish. That's like a ballpark. We're going to have a great time. Thanks for coming to see OJ, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.